Here's my review of Shogun. I thought that this show was great and definitely one of my favorite shows of the year. I thought that it was beautiful, but most of all, I just found this story to be so compelling as in 1600 Japan, the European guy named who they call Anjin comes to Japan, like from this boat, and a lot of it is him kind of learning about this Japanese culture as well as also kind of teaching him some certain things about his culture, as well as learning about these different factions within like Japan and in this ancient Japan within this like empire where who's basically, I mean, there are several main characters, but one of the main important ones is Lord Yoshi, I believe is what his name is. And I can't remember his name exactly, the actor's name, but I've seen him in a couple of other things and he is always great. And he is great here as well. And he just gives such a compelling performance where you almost feel terrified, yet he seems in a way like he genuinely does want to help this European. And I just found like almost just like this is I think many people might go into the show thinking that it is a samurai show, and it's not that. There is some of that stuff in there, but this is mainly a slow drama, learning about these characters, learning about these different factions and ancient politics within Japan, which I found to be extremely compelling. And another main character is Toda Mariko, who she I think is great as well. I mean, Anna Sawai, I've only ever seen her in Monarch, and even though I didn't mind that show, I liked it, but it wasn't really great. She was great in it, and she is the translator for Anjin to basically, and she's kind of course, like I said, used to translate, but a lot of this world is kind of through the eyes of the Anjin, and she's kind of just there to almost be the expert and explain. She's basically used for exposition, it feels like, but I thought that it was done beautifully. And just, I think almost all the characters in this show are very interesting. I will say, I think that is Anjin is one of my favorite characters. He might be the best because I think he's, like I said, he's used to introduce us into this brutal world of this ancient samurai Japan. And he's obviously like a lot of the stuff can be just horrifying, and he's basically what we see. Even though, in many ways, though, I think we're supposed to see this some of the stuff as terrifying, but also in a way almost awe-inspiring of how grand scope this world feels. And it definitely feels expensive. Like this show, when you watch the show, it looks beautiful and it looks like it spent a lot of money on it, which I don't know what the budget was for this show, but if they had a big budget, then it definitely didn't go to waste. If they had a small budget, man, it was great with this budget. And like I said, this is not an action show, but there is some very, very cool action and it is very brutal. And I thought that it was great whenever it is on there. Like I said, it's mainly a lot of it learning about these ancient politics, and sometimes Anjin is helping Lord Yoshi learn certain more newer techniques that he would learn from being European and introducing this to Japan. And it's very interesting. As well as there's also like a priest character who has this deal with the emperor that if he helps him, he could build a church in Japan, and he's a very fascinating character as well. And I mean, all the characters are just very interesting. Like I said, it is very brutal show. I think that's what I like about it. It's not necessarily like, oh, it's gore, so it's fun, but when it is there, it is just so crazy and brutal, which it should be considering this is a brutal time period. But I mean, my favorite parts of the show were just the discussing of like the ancient Japanese politics. That was my compelling. This was just a bonus. And I'm going to go into major spoilers here, just so you know. I mean, I spoil it. Every single one of my reviews has spoilers, but I still just want to preference it. I mean, so eventually there's a lot of death. Mariko dies from an explosion, and you feel it. You feel it because you get to learn about her through the eyes of the engine, and also as well, there's kind of like this. They kind of develop a friendship between each other, and I really like that it's never a romantic relationship. And then at a certain point, they kind of have to. She doesn't see him as a friend. They just kind of almost as an enemy, and I think that it was done very well. And another big reveal is how this was almost a story from the engine that he is telling several years later to like his grandchildren, which I just thought was a great twist. And I think it kind of puts you in perspective, like, was all this stuff real? I don't really know, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, if you're going in this show expecting a Japanese samurai show, that is not what this is. That is there, but a lot of it is kind of dealing with these other politics and these different factions and some betrayal and all these different interesting characters. And there's some other interesting characters like Kiku, or was it Ochiba? I don't remember exactly which one this is, but she also kind of, we learn about how she goes on this little character arc as well, and where she almost wants to join the church, and it's just cool to see like these different character arcs for even the side characters. So yeah, in my opinion, I think this is probably one of my favorite shows of the year. Maybe second favorite. I love an X-Men 97 as well. But yeah, I thought this show was fantastic. It is brutal. It is a beautiful drama about these fascinating characters. The world is beautiful. It's just, and there's also this whole subplot with Lord Ishido's brother, or Lord Yoshi's brother, and there's just so much depth and lore here that I don't want to get into all of it just because there's so much, and I think that you should check it out for yourself. But you have to go in. This is kind of like a Japanese Game of Thrones. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but that's what I've heard, so take that for what you will. But you have to go in. This isn't that much of a samurai show. There, but this is a lot of beautiful, very interesting political discussions of these ancient Japanese factions, along with dealing with a little bit of, not really in European, like we learn about some of what Europe's going on with from the white men, as they're referred to, and the Anjins. And I thought this was a great show. So yeah, I would highly recommend that you check this out.